Welcome back, everyone, for another episode of Silver Cosmo Movie Reviews.
Hey, zoom.
Hello, everyone.
Hey, it's Chris with a K, guys.
It's Marquez, straight from the Fortress of Solitude, the off-brand Superman. You guys are going to have to forgive me. I'm just getting over a sinus infection, so... Okay.
I thought you were invincible. You were Superman.
No.
You need to go back.
I said
He
off-brand.
does says off-brand.
Off-brand Superman. I'm susceptible to sickness, disease.
I got my kryptonite right here. And this is your host, Carlos. All right, you guys, we have a special edition show. So for all the Dune fans, this one is for you. So I want to give a special dedication for this show to my good friend Chris here. Chris, David, and Carrie V. You guys inspired me to do this because I never knew nothing about Dune, and I read the books. And I got hooked on it. Then when the movie came out, I enjoyed it with my brother. And the movie was just great. So this show is for you guys. So what we're going to do is, since this is a special edition, we're going to break this up into certain categories. So today, this is more of the pilot episode 4, Dune itself. And then on the second one that we're going to do, we're going to go in depth on the characters and then so forth. So please, if we miss anything on this show, I highly encourage to visit my friends over at Dominique in Film and Page. He's on YouTube. Follow him. He's got amounts of knowledge of Dune as well. Follow him. And also, we also encourage you to do some research yourself or get the book, right, Chris? Go get the book and read it. It's a good book. So
great read. Also,
do not forget, we are doing the contest giveaway. It's this month. Of the month of December, we are giving away the tickets for Spider-Man No Way Home, also the Matrix Resurrections. So
yes,
please,
excited for both.
Like and subscribe, and we'll have more details to give away on that shortly. And also follow us on our platforms on Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, and Instagram and Twitter. So we
like and subscribe.
Yeah, yes. we are rocking on all cylinders. Also, stay tuned in because we will talk a little bit about the new shows that are coming up for this month and January as well. So, Chris, I'm excited. We're going to talk a little bit about the Cutting Crew. So that's coming back. So let's give a quick shout out and pause for our following sponsor break.
Hey, guys, it's your old pal, Chris with a K here, giving a shout out to some of those unsung heroes in the entertainment industry, DJs. And we've got a great one for you. Spin It Again Entertainment. Doing weddings, anniversaries, birthdays, music events, photo booths with backdrops and dancing on the clouds. Check them out at Linktree Spin It Again Entertainment. Their phone number 316-617-3281. That's Spin It Again Entertainment. Check them out for all your entertainment needs.
All right, you guys. So, Chris, I'm going to ask you, can you help me go ahead and let's introduce Dune? Tell me a little bit about Dune.
Well, Dune was a novel written by Frank Herbert. Back in 1965, it was a Nebula Award, which was a sci-fi award winner for Best Novel in 66. It's been tried to be created into other media than with limited success. Probably sci-fi's attempts in the early 2000s with some of the sequels to Dune were well received. Unfortunately, they didn't continue with those, but I thought those were done well with miniseries. But it's a 6-part series, actually. He wrote the first book, Dune, which is what the movie that we're going to be talking about starts with. And then it just, some of those books as it goes they just take you for a loop. So the whole story overall is great, but the introductory to this far opposed to like a Star Wars, this distant future of humanity in a galaxy possibly far. It doesn't really say where it is in location to the Earth, but there is some reference, I believe, in the books at some points to Terran life.
Yeah.
In the past, but we're talking tens of thousands of years in the future here, and yeah, Frank Herbert just weaves this amazing story of political intrigue and feudal society where lords and barons are running the galaxy, not just some small little parts of the countries, but running the galaxy with billions upon billions of people at their command and service, depending on whose banner you're working under.
Okay.
and with just some amazing characters that blow your mind. A lot of people have said that Star Wars took a lot of their inspiration for things from the Dune novels, as well as many other sci-fi. It's kind of the godfather of science fiction fantasy, similar to like J.R. Tolkien's the godfather of medieval fantasy and things like that. So,
okay,
there's a start for the Duniacs up there. I don't know, Dunophiles. But that's the book. There were some attempts at movies in the 70s. Jodorowsky was known for having tried to put one together, never came about. Then you have the David Lynch 1984 that most people might have seen some point in time on TV in the 80s with Sting was in it.
Yeah, I remember Sting was in the original.
A much larger character than I think that character that he plays has really in the book series. Probably because it was Sting.
Yeah, he was a rock star. Yeah, so
he was all of a sudden the main bad guy instead of the Harkonnen family, which he works for him, but he's not.
One of the I have a question, Chris, if you don't mind me asking real quick, Carlos, if I could go ahead. The spice melange itself, we always see these biological applications for it, and here in the new movie, they had a space. It actually was key in navigating space.
Yeah, it is one of the keys in the books as well.
Well, one of the things they never really show how it's harvested. They touched on, they had these big machines in this new movie, but it never really showed the process of harvesting and refining it.
And I don't think he really even gets into that process so much. It's more of just they filter it out of the air and sand, and it's refined, similar to like oil or something like that. I mean, most of Dune, the book, he's drawing metaphors and allegories to real life things. Paul coming up as the Messiah in this culture is also similar to, and creating a religion and the way it overtakes society, and how it can be manipulated through society. He's drawing a bunch of correlations to what was going on in the 50s and 60s during his time of writing these things. There's a lot of things with that, as well as like the Bene Gesserit is an all-female movement, and you're also seeing in the 60s the rise of the feminist movement. And so there's a lot of things, and that's some of the stuff they updated is what they would say. Some people would say it was woke or whatever, but they made Chani a little bit more of a powerful woman figure instead of a very subservient. And that's, that's a little bit of taste, but it's it's modern, modernizing. It essentially, it was a story written in the 60s, and you're now telling it in the 2020s.
Yeah,
you've got to say, oh well, hey, maybe in the future it wouldn't still be an extremely patriarchal society everywhere, or
and
things like that.
I actually like that aspect of it, the way that they broke up, everybody was under a banner, they had an allegiance and things like that, the factions, and each faction had its own agenda, and it all revolved around the spice.
And the spice is that's what gives Dune its power. It's the only place in the galaxy you can get, and it is a magical. It lengthens the life. It increases people's awareness. We were saying with space travel, why it's used for that is the navigate. So no one uses computers anywhere. There's no form of artificial intelligence, which they haven't fully gotten into, but you can kind of see in the movie that there's no walking up to computer, beep, boop, bop, bop. It's, there's mechanical devices, but there's no actual, like in the planes, it's all like an old time plane or helicopter. It's all run by,
there's no automation,
right?
You control it.
It's all controlled by, and with the Space Guild and flight, they use Mentats, which we did see a Mentat. We saw the Atreides Mentat, and we saw the Harkonnens.
The Harkonnens.
Mentat, which was Peter DeVries, which is who Sting played in the original, and you could see in this one. I'm not sure. I can't remember the actor's name, but he's been in a lot of stuff lately. He was in Suicide Squad, wasn't he too? That played Petre. Do you remember?
We
He
gotta
was
look
only in
that
the
up.
movie for a brief part, working some behind the scenes stuff with the Emperor, and he was the one that got the Emperor's army. Was working that deal with the Emperor, I believe.
Oh,
Yeah, with the Sardaukar.
Yeah,
To get the
Sardaukar. So, and that's a whole nother thing that they just were touching on. Is there's this thing going on? So the Emperor is giving the Atreides, who have gained recognition with people and have increased their power within the the Imperium, and have gotten more. Leto was so obvious, and they really showed, I think, I really liked how they showed Caledon in the movie, the home world of the Atreides, and how the people loved them so much.
Yeah.
And and that was the Emperor was getting really mad at the Atreides for that.
And then we're going to go more in depth on that too, Chris. But that real quick, the actor that played Dieter Peter,
Yeah,
it's David Tasmalakian. Yeah, he's been in quite a bit. He was in The Dark Knight also.
Yeah.
He's played in the Ant-Man movies, and he's also was in Prisoners and The Belko Experiment, Bird Box, Blade Runner. So he's been in another movie with Denis Villeneuve. So that goes to show he just kind of followed on.
But you could tell in his character in this new one was much more on point than it was in the old. He was a main character on the villain side, but he wasn't the central villain like Sting was in 84.
Okay, yeah.
Like there's no knife fights with the Mentat. He's a Mentat is a walking computer basically. It's trained, taken from birth and trained, and using spice to enhance their focus. Now, the Bene Gesserit use the spice to see into their past lives. They go into a trance with it, which they get into, and that's what Paul was starting to experience at the end of the movie with the prescience and starting to be able to see the moves of people. And that's why if you go full in to taking pure spice, you get the blue eyes, and a lot of the upper level mother Bene Gesserits have those because they've walked that path, which is a deadly path. You can die. It's a poison. That's why you have to be able to control. Now the Fremen living on the planet have just simply naturally
they've evolved
to be able to withstand, and they gain some strength and things like that. They don't necessarily have the prescience or the ability to see into the future and past, because that's not something that they're concerned with really.
Those are some good points. So let's go ahead and lay out the platform real quick. So the movie itself, let's talk about the Jaworski one. Chris, what happened to that movie briefly?
I'm not really super sure exactly what happened to it. It kind of just stalled out in negotiations and monies, and was more than they could really wrap the graphics at the time, the cinema at the time just couldn't really wrap its mind around. Star Wars hadn't been out yet, for one. So there was no from the production side, there's no, there's a market for that. They're like, what are you talking about? You want this weird, there was limited science fiction like the 2001 Space Odyssey, but that's not science fiction fantasy, which is what something like Star Wars and Dune is. Like Star Trek isn't even fantasy. It's
more hard science fiction.
Right. Hard science with the fiction. Yeah. And so there wasn't, they didn't, I don't know if there was necessarily enough there for them to take a walk on this weird, and it's such a big story to try to encompass, as we saw with 84, to encompass what's really going on. You can't do in one movie. And this was time before you were like, we're going to make a 7-movie story. And they're like, no, you're not.
Yeah. This is before the age of binge watching.
You gotta wrap it up in an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Back then, So
if for a Dune fan that just got done reading the book, and now that they heard of this, they do have a Blu-ray version out for it as well on streaming. I don't know what, I think it's on Prime. I don't know if it's on Prime or Netflix, but they do offer the Jaworski Dune. So in that clip, it goes over with the director, talks about the storyboard, it talks about who was involved, what led to it to get canceled out. and for him to go on this rant. And I remember in the 80s, he
and he was
well,
kind
not
of a
in
weird guy. Like he was a weird.
Yeah.
He wasn't a blockbuster type director at the time. He was like,
Right.
oh, he's a little artsy to put a lot behind.
so he was just in his feelings and overall. So we'll just leave it.
oh,
at that.
yeah.
All right, so let's move on to the 1985 version, which we saw David Lynch did not conclude at the end because of pressures from studio and also dealing with just, you know how it is, the companies, especially in that time that he was working with. I wonder if it was a Warner Brothers. I'm going to do some research on it. But what happened was the studio gave David Lynch a hard time, and
Really?
he finally did not do the director's cut for it. So, so on that one, we know Sting portrayed a Harkonnen, but he was given a little bit more of spotlight in this movie. And the main actor that played Paul Atreides,
Kyle MacLachlan.
yes, I remember him in that show Twin Peaks. He was in that show Twin Peaks, and then he also is in a comedy. He's in a comedy, Portlandia. He's in Portlandia. He is the mayor of Portland. So in this one, yes, they had it was a big project to do.
Oh, sure.
And now it was hit and miss with the book. I get it. You can't always get everything in the book and then make it into the movie. But that movie was okay, but still in that time, I think it just did not captivate the audience.
Yeah, it was truly ahead of its time, honestly. I remember watching that as a kid, and the worms. I mean, that was
the sandworms were. Yeah, when they start riding them was pretty cool.
I thought that it was nothing like it. There was no other. I know you said the closest thing to it, Chris, was Star Wars, but that to me, I mean, I remember
blew that out.
Taking my mom's luggage and trying to act like those were the sandworms that I would ride on, you know.
Well, and it had a really good cast. I mean, you had Virginia Madsen in it. You had Kyle MacLachlan debuting.
Sting. Yeah, you know.
Patrick Stewart was in it. Dean Stockwell.
Yeah, it was his pre-Captain Picard days.
But he was already by then Shakespearean actor.
He was a stage actor.
So he had some acting chops. I think partly, I think one of the big things that people had against is that it really took too much focus onto that Sting character. I really think that was a big one.
Really,
and made the Baron, it just made him gross and not scary. I think that's what I felt like. I was just like Garbage Pail Kid gross is what I was thinking back then. You know what I mean? Just like snot running off of me is what it looked like. It just these
pustules
and poor animatronics.
Yeah.
Whereas you see the new one spelled with Stellan Skarsgård, and you're just like, oh, this dude ain't messing around. He does not care about anyone but his
his demeanor and how slow and methodical.
He reminds me of,
and then rising up the way
he reminds me of William Dafoe when he plays Kingpin in the show Daredevil.
William Dafoe.
No, not Dafoe.
No. What's his name?
Garofalo.
No, D'Onofrio. What's his name?
Vincent D'Onofrio.
Yeah, D'Onofrio.
Yeah. Just really not being absurd, just being like this menacing force.
A man of a few words.
Yeah.
And just a menace and calculating,
quiet,
cunning,
soft spoken. I don't need to
and he's a master manipulator. He knows how to get to you.
That's a good.
He's good.
Yeah. Kingpin and Baron Harkonnen. That's a good little.
Let's go ahead and move on to the miniseries that was directed by John Harrison. So in those, they were broken up into miniseries. So you had Dune, Dune Messiah,
and it didn't start with the original. It started with the second
Dune Messiah
book, and I think they were both 3-part miniseries, right?
Mm-hmm.
I unfortunately didn't get to see those. I've heard so much good about them. I didn't have access back then.
Who's the actor that plays Professor X?
It's
James
McAvoy.
McElroy. Yeah.
Yes, he plays Paul Atreides in the miniseries.
Cool. In the was it the Messiah?
No, he plays Leto. I take that back.
He plays Leto the second, right?
Yeah, Children of Dune.
Which are Paul's children, which is the third book.
Wow.
Well, the second book is when he has them at the end of that.
Yeah.
And then the third book, So there's so much, like there's so much growth that happens between each book, and some of the books there's years in between. Like it'll go, 60 years later they've conquered the galaxy now, and boom, now here's the next set of political intrigue, and the Bene Gesserit, all these factions are very long thinking, because this Imperium's been around for 10,000 years now. So everyone's calculating hundreds, if not thousands of years into the future. The Bene Gesserit especially, because they're looking back, and the Bene Gesserit, they're rolling. That's why they got mad at Jessica for allowing a male birth, because their whole thing is to go. She wasn't the wife, because they send their ladies to various houses, and all the various families have to send them a girl every so often to raise, because they're trying to manipulate the gene pool to get to this Kwisatz Haderach that Lady Jessica believes that Paul can be, which is essentially the Messiah, that will lead humanity into forever future. And we're not going to wind up killing ourselves, which I think anyone looking too far to the future is like, oh, we're going to be dumb enough to shoot ourselves in the face. So.
And just to soft touch on how this is all coming together, what happened is the human race it's kind of like the Matrix. It got into wars with androids and machines. The humans won in this one. So, and
that's why we don't have any more.
They abolished all machinery in the
AI.
sense, artificial intelligence. So therefore, they use the mentats as the human computer. So can you imagine having, instead of a calculator, you have a person. Hey, follow this.
And they do like insane computer level calculations. Not like when the guy's eyes roll back, that's them going
in the new one, right?
Yeah,
the new one.
Yeah, that was cool.
And let's go ahead and dive in on that. So we have the new Dune, where pretty much everyone is inquiring about. That one's directed by Denis Villeneuve, and he's a respectable director. I mean, he's has
Blade Runner
quite a bit under his belt with The Arrival, Blade Runner, and other movies. But let's go ahead and key on what we're going to do is with the show, we're going to use pretty much the fan base most popular ones. We're going to use the new one directed by Denis Villeneuve, and also we're going to use a little bit of the David Lynch, just so there's a little bit of a comparisons. So let's go ahead and lay out the platforms of the planets that we're going to talk about real quick. So let's start off with the House of Atreides of Caledon. Chris, tell me a little bit about the House of Atreides.
So I believe it was Leto's grandfather, which is Paul's dad, Leto the First, was a bullfighter and inspired. I mean, the Atreides family is just constantly, since they've been in power, and all these families are mostly 10,000 years old that they've been in power.
Wow.
Just passing it down, and they've consolidated to these various families with the emperor, who's been in power, the Emperor Shaddam the Fourth, I think they're on right now. But that family's been the imperial family for 10,000 years. It's the Shaddam Imperium, I think, is what they call it. That's lasted this long, and that this all started from right post I can't remember, Butlerian Jihad, which was the fight against the machines, and so this Imperium's been in place since then. And the Atreides house has always been essentially a fan favorite. I mean, all the people, like, they inspire their people to fight, whereas like the Harkonnens terrify their people to fight. They brutalize them and force them through slavery and things like that. And so that's where the Atreides is. They've always constantly, I mean, the grandfather would fight bulls in the streets for his people, and they've just always inspired loyalty and through compassion and, through their generosities and things like that. And essentially they're always looking on the bright side of, this isn't, we're sent to this all water planet where there's no, ore and resources. How do we make that a power in the galaxy? And they wind up doing that by inspiring people around them and such like that. So, and that's where the real crux of the Emperor's jealous of that. The Harkonnens have never, they've been essentially Hatfield and McCoys for thousands of years. That the Harkonnens, they've always, and there's always assassins trying to kill everyone. That's why you have the shields and all that stuff. But the Atreides are they're the good guys. They're the people that everybody wants to be their ruler. I mean, and I think that Oscar Isaac portrayed that really well. There's a couple things I wish I didn't like that they kind of skipped over the introductory party that happens in the book when they get to Arrakis the first couple nights. They kind of breeze through that a little bit faster than I thought, because there was a lot of intrigue that happens in the book there, a lot of information passed, and Paul learns a lot more, I thought, than what they did in the movie. But
they did show it in the 85
yeah,
movie.
they
showed that,
a little
but
more.
in the book, so for the audience now, what we're going to do is try to make sure that we don't get you guys lost. That's why we're going to try to keep as close as possible so you guys can follow along. So what Chris is saying is the once, if you saw the movie already, it's not a spoiler.
No.
So hopefully you've seen the movie
I mean,
already.
it's not like a conflict
when
thing.
when Arrakis was given to the Duke and
Was
the
pa-
family of the power, the
was
transition of
passed from
power.
the Harkonnens to the
It
Atreides.
was like, if you paid attention to the movie, it was a gift, but not really. It was behind the scenes. The Emperor set it up on purpose to give it to them, to the Duke Leto,
which
as a setup.
appeases.
It's a setup. It's a setup.
Well, and it was an appeasement to the other Imperial lords who want, because Arrakis is the main thing, and they knew Harkonnens were cheating on the side, which they were. They were skimming their own. But they were also skimming for the Emperor. So they're taking, off the top, they're taking 20%, but and then they're taking another 10% and giving it to the Emperor and being like, "Hey, man, we're all cool, right? You get yours, we got ours, and everyone else is still getting theirs." And so they worked out this deal because neither of them wanted to lose that, but they knew they had to give up Arrakis, because I think there was a deal in the original bylaws or whatever that every so many years, every 100 years or 500 years, something, the ruling family of Arrakis had to change so that nobody would gain too much power. But of course, the Harkonnens are cheaters.
Yeah.
And so they extended that, manipulated that to have longer rule, and also were skimming to make themselves wealthier. And so that was the reason that they were trying to knock out. They left them all the crappy refinery stuff and barely anything to get any, because they knew that would make spice go up. And who has all the reserves? The Harkonnens and the Emperor. So they're going to make hand over fist.
So they were undercutting Atreides.
They were undercutting, but the Emperor was
to-
also setting them up, because he knew that the Harkonnens were not just going to be like, "Oh, cool, they get it."
Yeah.
Like, they're vicious people, and they're and what's his name that played Beast in the movie, John Bautista.
Bautista, yeah.
Dave Bautista.
Dave Bautista, yeah.
He played a good Beast, Robin.
Yeah.
And he's gonna have a stronger role in the second movie. Now,
the second one I think we're gonna see a lot more action in the second one. There's a lot more gritty. Like this first one, I know everyone's like, "Well, it was a cool shot," and there wasn't a whole lot of story that you really progressed through, because it was all introductory stuff.
Yeah, just for the few people that hadn't heard of Dune.
So what we're going to do is, on the next show, we're going to elaborate and we're going to break down the characters to go in there. So real quick, on to the big bad guys of the Harkonnen. They reside in Giddy Prime. So Giddy Prime is known for their vast resources, polluted. It's real polluted. It's terrible conditions.
Very industrialized.
So tell me a little bit more about it, Chris.
Well, and you look at like another comparison with the Atreides, like Caledon is this beautiful, lush, nature, full of nature. Everyone's one with the world type of peaceful life. And then you flash over to Giddy Prime, which I think the movie did a good job of showing how dark and just everything's metal and smoke and gross and black and
smoldering,
like
and,
just dirt is coming down everywhere. Yeah, it's one of those like a Pittsburgh, like smelting
steel,
yeah, like a steel refinery.
You chose Pittsburgh out of
the steel town. I mean,
you could have put Beijing, Mexico City, but he chose Pittsburgh. This guy.
I grew up near there, so not too far. But yeah, and the Harkonnens have, for all their years of being a family, have always ruled in fear. They're known for slaves, and they have huge slave planets. Most of their armies are just slaves. But that's kind of the way the Imperium works is, hey, everyone gets to kind of roll their own dice. And if anyone has too much of a problem, we'll all go together to go after them. But the Harkonnens are the most powerful family because they have the most spice, the most money, they have the most people, and they're not afraid to watch any of them die. They have zero, like a person is a rock to them. It's whatever value they can achieve from it.
So they're pretty much driven by greed. Excessive.
Well, and I mean, I would say part of there's definitely like a fan, like the Harkonnens will live forever type of deal, like trying to establish continue their own leadership. But yeah, it's a greed for power. I mean, it's hunger for power through any means necessary. Spice being the number one mean in the galaxy.
Yeah.
All right. So on to the next house, we have the Emperor. He resides in two sides. Two planets. The first one is Carino. And then the second one, they did show in the movie where the Sardaukar is stationed at the Seleucia Secundus. Is that where so that planet pretty much
like a death planet,
like
a prison planet,
which they did a good job elaborating it on the book. But in Dune, they only touch on it a little bit. But there's another book. Can you tell me that book where it talks a lot more about the planet?
On the, I believe it's, of the Sardaukar army, it'd probably be one of the prequels. I haven't read all the prequels. The Brian Anderson one stuff, I'm not super keen on. They're pretty thick. They're pretty like there's just a lot. They're very wordy. Frank Herbert, one of the things that's awesome about his writing is it's very clear, concise. Like he tells you a lot in a little bit of words and as little words as he can use. So I think that's one of the, it's just, it was very well written. He was very good at that. But the Emperor, that family has been the leaders of the empire because his ancient ancestors during the Butlerian Jihad were heroes, basically. Like if you go back and read those prequels, that's my understanding that's the hero family in the Butlerian Jihad books in the prequels. Whereas like now you see it's the Atreides in the Dune.
Yeah, Marquez, when you saw the Sardaukar, when they were doing their chant, and these guys are fierce warriors.
Yes.
Fiercest in the galaxy.
So what'd you think of that planet? Did it look pretty depressing?
Yeah, it was just like you just got this idea of like this desolate, like this cloud washed over you, like this dark, just like these people would eat you.
I bet they would.
It was just just the spectacle of that. I mean, I love the characters, the scene. I'm pretty new, like I say, to the Dune universe, but I'm hooked. I'm like you, Carlos. I'd be curious though to see what they could do. Maybe this is just the nerd in me, but if it was like a animation, like an animated series. Like if they did something like that.
And one of the things we're going to see with this one that I'm really excited about is they are going to be bringing in series to mix into it. So the first HBO is going to be having a lady, which Dune was on, of course, for the dual release, a Lady Jessica series about her, I believe her growing up essentially in the Bene. So you're going to really get to understand the Bene Gesserit and that lifestyle through that series. And I think it's maybe up to her be getting with Leto. I'm not sure where in the timeline that series is going to work, but that's going to be, and I think they're going to do that with a few of the.
Oh, that ought to be interesting.
So kind of like what Marvel's starting to do now, where you have some filler series in between the big movies.
Yeah,
I think that Warner Brothers is doing that with this because there is such a huge world to build through.
Yeah,
like we said, we barely touched in the movie on Bene Gesserit and why does it matter and who are these people and what are they, like these weird witch ladies with funky powers that everybody's kind of like either impressed with or scared of.
Yeah.
So I think that's going to be good if they're going to do that. I could see them getting into some of the other prequel books, like you have so Frank Herbert's son went with Brian Anderson wrote a bunch of filler books in the original series, but then also went and wrote a bunch of prequel stuff based all off his dad's notes.
Oh wow!
So you have cool. like Chapter House, or not. That's a real one. But you have the House Atreides book that talks about it's a trilogy that tells about Atreides lineage, the House of Harkonnen that talks about, because at one point some of them were really good friends. I think it was Leto's dad or his grandpa was really good friends with one of the Harkonnens, and that's one of the things that that stirred up a lot more of the hate. And there might have been like a Romeo Juliet, Montague's Capulet type of scenario that happened at one point between those two families. They're like those two families, the Harkonnens and Atreides, have just gone so long of fighting, and I think they'll get into that more because we didn't see a lot of the Baron, and like the second half of Dune, you get a lot more interaction that starts happening between Paul and the other players in the galaxy.
Yeah, so
the Harkonnen family, the Shaddam Carino family, and the Bene Gesserit, all the So
you'll find out more about it, Marquez, on the next episode. Okay. So the next episode we will break that down. So the last but not least, Arrakis. Okay,
Dune. That is
Dune.
Its own thing.
Dune, pretty much we know already, it's not all desert, but we don't want to give it all away yet. But it's not all desert. We'll just leave it at that.
The Fremen have been there for centuries. There is a prequel book that talks about how they arrived there and where they're from and stuff like that.
They're not indigenous.
No.
I thought
you gotta stay tuned for the other episode.
They're as indigenous as anyone ever has been, I believe.
So, but also, we know already. So, for the audience, Spice Melange is only located so far in the series in Arrakis. Mm-hmm. Arrakis is the main player in all this because it enhances and it gives everybody pretty much a piece of the pie. It helps the Space Guild, the Bene Gesserit, the Mentats, the political powers that's going on, that's warring, feuding in the families. So that's where Dune is in the heart, is there in Arrakis.
And especially in this movie, nobody knows why Arrakis has it. Like why, they've been everywhere in the galaxy trying to find more. And they've even tried to make it happen other places. But Arrakis is the only place in the galaxy. Is a big place. And at this point, they spread quite expansively throughout it and still found nothing close to Arrakis. And so it's very interesting.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it so exciting to keep digging in on all just what Frank Herbert what he wrote. Can you imagine just sitting here, him being creative? And it's just so vast. And so, like I said, and as promised, we're going to do is break this up. And so we just wanted to lay out the platform of what Dune is, what you get into. So the next series that we're about to do, we're going to start doing the characters. So get your pen and paper, do a little bit of rewinding.
And we're going to try to stick with just the characters that are in the first book / movie.
Yes. So it doesn't get all confusing.
Because as the books go on,
we will talk about the war. We'll do a little bit of introduction on what's going on. We're going to also talk about the war in the families. And we're also going to talk about the Messiah. Who is the Messiah?
Yeah.
And those and everybody everybody in there. So again, we want to conclude that this is a special edition of Dune. We will do another one. The next show that we're about to do for Silver Cosmo movie we're going to do the Spider-Man, and then also we're going to do the Matrix, and then we'll also, for all the Star Wars fans, we're going to do one for you guys as well.
We got some Boba Fett coming up.
Yes. So we're gonna do some Star Wars too. That's what for. And also for Wichita Vice, we will do. So you guys get the sneak peek here for Wichita Vice. We're gonna do the Sinister Six. Ooh, so we're gonna focus on the characters that are coming back. I looked at the lineup and wow, everybody's coming back. Now I can say this. William Dafoe is coming back. Jamie Foxx, Alfred Molina is back. Andrew Garfield, Tobey Maguire's. Well, no one cares about Tobey Maguire, but okay, so he's coming. He's coming back. That guy's coming back.
Like Toby Mac.
Now, Is Kristen Dunst coming back?
I don't
I hope not.
Probably not.
think so.
Yeah.
I don't think-
But
Is it
overall,
Kristen?
Yeah.
What is it?
does it matter?
What?
We don't come back. But, okay, so overall, we will do more in depth on that. So we've got a lot of shows coming up, and like I said, we are going to do a live show for the Spider-Man. So we will give away that day, and also for the Matrix, we're going to give away movie tickets for the Matrix. If you're going to watch it at home, we will also do a gift certificate for you if you just want to just use that to pay your HBO Max bill. So be it. Don't matter. Now, for my out-of-towners, all right, we did not forget about you guys. If you do win and you are residing not in Kansas or in Wichita itself, we'll take down your information and we'll mail that out to you or email. We will get with you on that. So in conclusion, this is just only part 1 of Dune. We have much more to go. I want to say thank you so much to the friends and family. Thank you for the people behind the scenes. Also, I want to thank all the people that got me hooked on Dune, Chris, David, and Curry. Thank you so much. Yeah. And we look forward in seeing you and hearing from you on the next episode. Any shout out, you guys, before we go?
Thank you, everyone, for watching.
Yeah, just keep them out there watching them.
All right. We'll see you in the next episode.
Thank you.